Second clip of fiqh. Here I'm going to be talking to you about fiqh, but in the Alim course itself. How we study fiqh in the Alim course and the aims and objectives of fiqh here. Previously I talked to you a bit about the overview of fiqh. Here I'm going to be mentioning about fiqh in the Alim course. Now let's imagine this is a timeline, and this is the hijrah, the migration of the Prophet ﷺ, and we are over here. Let's say this is us. Now, fiqh has always been developing since the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, what I mean by developing is that depending on the situations and circumstances and times, the fiqh has always been derived from the Quran and the Sunnah, and it's always been researched and studied. Now, there came a time which was roughly about this era here where fiqh really took off, and scholars began to compile the issues and the masail in chapter form. So you had chapters and also in book form as well. So scholars began to compile their works. So fiqh became more structured in this era, and we hear about the scholars who were, the main scholars who took this task and became famous for it. Some of them, their works continue till today, like Imam Malik rahimahullah, who had the Maliki school of fiqh, who was the founder of the Maliki school of fiqh. And you had Imam Abu Hanifa, who was the Hanafi school of fiqh founder. And then you had the Imam Shafi'i, who was the Shafi'i's school of fiqh founder. And you had Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who is the Hanbali school of fiqh founder. Now these schools of fiqh, that were founded at this time, they weren't really founded at this time only. The efforts have been continuous from the time of the Sahaba, but it was these scholars who really structured the school of thought, we can say, itself, and they became famous for it, and their students and have been researching, and even up till today the school of thought has been refined and researched thoroughly. Now, when you study the Alim course, you're going to be studying fiqh based on one of these four main madhabs. So let's say the Hanafi madhab. Let's say you study the Hanafi madhab. Then what you'll be studying, is chapters of purity, of salah, zakah, charity, fasting, hajj, and all the different other aspects of worship. And you'll also be studying chapters like transactions, something which maybe many of us haven't come across, marriage as well, with regards to the rulings of marriage, divorce, rulings with regard to penalties, and inheritance, etc. So all the different chapters. And remember, there's many chapters that you'll be studying. There's many different types of chapters, and some chapters you possibly would not have possibly even heard of. You'll be studying all those, and these are all, like I said, derived from the main two sources, from the Quran and the Sunnah. Now, one thing you have to note is that when you're studying fiqh in an Alim course, you're going to be studying it gradually over time and building up your capacity, because remember, fiqh is quite difficult to take in for the first time. So you'll be studying it like, you can imagine, steps. So you imagine here like 4 steps I make. These aren't very straight steps. You'll be studying it over 4 different stages, let's say 4. And what I mean by that is, first of all, you'll be studying the basics. And what I mean by that is, you'll be studying a text and covering all the chapters, all the main chapters of fiqh, and covering the issues. So many of the issues that you may not have come across, you don't know about, you'll be studying all those, so that you have, or you can grasp an understanding of what the whole of fiqh is about. Once you finish this, then after that you'll be studying what we consider to be the next level, which is the differences of opinion. Now, the differences of opinion are also something which are is very important to study. Now, the differences of opinion here, you'll be studying actually the differences of opinion within a madhab itself. Okay, say within the school of thought. And remember, the schools of thought are schools which have been developed by many scholars, not just one scholar, but many scholars. So you'll have many different opinions inside the schools of thought themselves, which are later on refined. So you'll be studying those. Then after that, what you'll be studying is the evidences themselves. So what are the evidences for the different issues or the masail that you've studied previously? You'll be studying the evidences for all of these. And remember, the evidences are all from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, they have to be from the Quran and Sunnah, or derived from the Quran and Sunnah in some way or the other. And once you've studied all of these evidences, then you'll not only know what fiqh is about, but you'll also know where we get our rulings from. Finally, what you'll be studying is an important topic, which is the topic of comparative fiqh. Okay, so I'm just going to comp there. So comparative fiqh is what you'll be studying, and this is what we mean by comparative fiqh, is that you'll be studying fiqh itself not only within one school of thought, but you'll be comparing it with the different madhabs themselves. Like we said earlier, the Hanafi madhab, the Shafi'i madhab, the Maliki madhab, the Hanbali madhab. You'll be studying the different madhabs themselves. What do they say? So the different schools. And now all of this is really, remember, all of this is really to find or understand the fiqh from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, because that's our aim. Our aim in the Alim course is to be able to understand the fiqh and to reach the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is our goal. Okay, this is what we want. So the student has to go through this process system, and sometimes it can become a bit long for a student to study all of this, but in the end, once a student has completed this, student will be very, very happy and have a very deep understanding of the religion itself. Now let me give an example of all of this. Okay, let me just three examples, things make sense. So let's say the issue of the wiping of the head. All of us wipe our heads in wudu. It's a central part of wudu to wipe the head. However, how much of the head do we wipe? Okay, so how much do we wipe? This is an issue which is differed upon in different schools of fiqh. So first of all, you study the issue of wiping the head itself, and then if there's any difference in the schools of in one school of fiqh, you'll study that. If there's not, you'll study the evidences, and if after you've studied the evidences, you'll study the comparative fiqh. Okay, and remember, all the fiqh schools of fiqh, they affiliate themselves towards the Quran and Sunnah. So let's say, for example, the Maliki madhab or the Hanafi madhab. Let's say the Hanafi madhab, their opinion is that a quarter of the head, one of the main opinions is that the quarter of the head is minimum. Okay, minimum of a quarter of head must be wiped. According to the Maliki school of fiqh, they say that the whole of the head, okay, has to be wiped. And the Shafi'i, they say that according to one of the opinions, 3 strands of hair have to be wiped. 3 strands. And there's different opinions within the madhab itself. And the Hanbali madhab, it has a similar opinion towards with the Maliki madhab themselves, the whole of the head. So you'll be studying all of these and their different opinions. Now remember, one thing you have to know is the different schools of fiqh. They 80% of what the fiqh entails is all the same. 80% is the same of all of the schools of fiqh. There's only 20% which they differ. Okay, 20% there is where you have some difference of opinion. Okay, So you don't have to worry too much about thinking that the madhahibs are totally different. They're very similar and there's very few differences. Now, once you've understood this, okay, now I want to move you on to something else. And that is with regards to the books themselves. Now, when you're studying in the Alim course, remember that you're going to be studying books which are of different levels. Okay, and remember it advances. Okay, so the books will advance. So you'll study an easy book, okay, or a simple text, and then you'll go on to more difficult texts. Now, when you're studying these texts, like what kind of texts are you going to be studying? So if you're studying the Hanafi fiqh, you'll be studying the Quduri, possibly studying the Quduri text initially. This is an early text, okay, in the timeline. It's an early text, and you'll be studying that, and then you'll be developing and be going on to the more advanced books themselves. And that's fiqh itself. Now, I want to move you finally onto usul fiqh. Okay, so let me just move over here. Usul fiqh, like I mentioned in the previous clip, is also important. Remember what we said before? We said that we have the Quran and we have the Sunnah. Okay, these two are the main sources of our religion, and this is really what we want to understand, the Quran and the Sunnah. However, the Quran and Sunnah is not something which is very easily accessible to most of us. Very difficult to be able to understand from the Quran and Sunnah, and so we need the help of the scholars, and our aim is to reach fiqh. Okay, so the scholars have organized the topics in fiqh in such a way that it's easier for us to be able to benefit. Now, this method in between, okay, the process in between, which is this process, let me just color this in a bit red. This is a method of reaching fiqh, the methodology that we said. Now, this method itself, okay, is what we call the usul al-fiqh. Usul al-fiqh. Now, in usul al-fiqh, what you'll be studying, so let's say this is our student. The student will have to study several things. Okay, number one, they'll have to study the terms. So you have terms, new term, because remember it's a sort of science, so you'll have lots of terms that you'll have to understand, definitions. You'll have to study different types of evidences in Sharia that we can use. You'll have to study also language, okay, the usage of language. Now, this is separate from Arabic itself, which you studied earlier. This will be about the usage of certain words and how they're used and how they're affected by the changing of time. Okay, you'll be studying the languages, and also you'll be studying the different types of methods of deriving. Okay, this is very important. Okay, to be able to derive rulings, you need to have studied this. Okay, so you'll be studying all of these different topics and some more. This is just a brief overview for you. Study more as well, and that's basically what usul fiqh is about. It's more to do with the principles, okay, that you'll need to be able to reach fiqh. And once you've studied all of this, then you'll know how the jurist reached from the Quran to the fiqhi rulings. And this will also develop inside of you an ability to be able to derive more rulings depending on the circumstances and situations of our times. Now, I hope that makes sense about fiqh. If you have any questions, then please leave them in the comments. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.